Slow robot, okay. Today we're going to talk about phase cancellation. But first, apologies if my audio doesn't sound great. I'm using my, um, uh, this is still set up for recording band stuff, so I don't have the best, microphone or chain going here. But anyway, phase cancellation. What do I want to talk about? Why do I want to talk about it? Right now, you're listening to a phase canceled signal, and what it's doing in your headphones is nothing. There is no sound coming out of your headphones, and so you can see on the screen it's looping, and if we undo one of these, we can hear it, and if we undo the other, we can hear it. And so, What do I want to talk about phase cancellation and why? Um, so I had a really difficult time for a long time of trying to understand what was happening in, like, from a practical standpoint with phase cancellation. Like, I understood the kind of graph that everybody sees. I did a really bad MS Paint drawing of it, and, like, you can understand this from a conceptual perspective pretty easily. The amplitude of one wave goes up while the amplitude of the other is going down, and so they cancel out. Like, that makes logical sense. But I didn't really understand what that was doing. Like, I'm thinking, like, I'm standing in a room with a drum kit and there's a kick drum and it's making this sound. What would make that phase cancel in the microphone or in my eardrum? And, like, because the way I would think about it is, like, you have this wave and it's like goes up and then down, right? And but reality is three dimensions. Well, the reality we experience is in three dimensions. It's not just two dimensions. It's not just up and down. So was it going left and then right? And is it going, like, down and then up? Like, how does that work in a 3D space? And the answer is that I was thinking about it wrong. Because, you see it this way and it makes sense and it's a good way of describing it, but it also is kind of missing a piece of the puzzle, because the the way that this is really working is, like, this is a pulse, it's not a wave. There's a, like, the intensity of a sound at any one point in time would be like a slice of this, would be like, that's the way that it's happening. So at this point, oh, that was really bad. Let's try that again. So if at this point in time it's not quite as loud as it was, a millisecond earlier when this part of the sound was happening, right? So as that pulse is coming through the air, it's hitting a fixed point in space. It's hitting a bunch of fixed points in space, and one of those would be your microphone, or one of those would be your eardrums. So how that's where my kind of misunderstanding was coming from. Again, I was thinking of it as a wave rather than a level of sound pressure at any given point in time. And so how to actually understand this from a, like, what's happening in your eardrum or what's happening in the speaker or what's happening in your microphone perspective, is to kind of take this, and so you see it's amplitude, right? That's what this is. That's the intensity of the pulse at any given point in time is the amplitude. Those are the lines I was just drawing, right? But if we change the how we talk about that, instead of calling it amplitude, let's erase this. If we call it something a little bit different, I think it becomes a little bit, at least it became a little bit clearer for me to understand. So we're going to call this, instead of amplitude, now we're going to call it speaker movement direction. Okay, so this, I think, makes more sense in terms of understanding it from a, again, your eardrums or the speaker position. So when you look at it this way, you might flip this whole thing on its side, which I'm not going to try and do in MS Paint, but you might think of it of this graph on its side, and obviously this is still time. So from left to right is still the dimension of time. You know, that's still time. But if you flip it on its side, you can look at it as the speaker movement going in this direction, and then the speaker movement going in this direction. So if you have two different waves and they're both lined up perfectly and they're pushing in opposite directions, your speaker is going to do this, right? It's not going to go anywhere. And so that's what phase cancellation means in that perspective. So again, like, to put a really fine point on it, so like this direction might be the speaker is coming towards you, and this direction might be the speaker going away from you. So every time that speaker is trying to move one direction but it's also trying to move the other direction, it's going to cancel out. And another way you can think about this is another analogy you can use is as tug of war, right? So like if you're looking at this is your speaker, and you got a guy on this side pulling this direction with a certain amount of force, and you got another guy on this other side that's pulling in the opposite direction with the same amount of force as this guy over here, they're going to cancel out, and that knot in the middle is going to stay right where it was, and that's your speaker. It's not going to move. It's not going to go back and forth. It's not going to push air, and you're not going to hear anything. And you know, to the opposite way, if you have sometimes you have things that are in phase and they add up. So if you take that same, if we come back here and we go into the mixer and I flip the phase on one of these and I play them back now, even though they still look out of phase, they're in phase now. You actually hear it get louder, right? And so that's the same kind of analogy. So if we go back to our really crappy drawing here, if you got two guys on this side of the you got a guy here and a guy here, and they're both pulling the same direction, you know, this is going to go way up instead of cancel out. So this is maybe really obvious to some people. It probably is, but for me it took a long time to come to this realization. And I've been doing music for 20 plus years, more than 20, probably 25 years now, and this just occurred to me like a month ago. But hopefully this helps somebody else understand, you know, what is physically happening with that, because like I said, like to me it was really confusing. Like again, like in a room, is that plus amplitude, is that going left, is it going right? We're in a 3D space, how is that working? And I think this kind of made it more understandable for me anyway, because it's like, okay, my eardrum is trying to go in two different directions at the same time, so it's gonna just stay in the middle and I'm not gonna hear anything. Oh. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so this is falling, but that's cool. Anyway, so yeah, that's hopefully this helps somebody else understand this, because it was really confusing for me. So maybe it's confusing for other people, I don't know. And if that's, you know, I don't know this, so if anybody has like further knowledge that contradicts me, please let me know. Like, I want to know that. And but and any thoughts or comments, please leave. And yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Otherwise, have a great day.